Amanda Kraus. I'm the still fairly new CEO of USRowing. I'm thrilled to be here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Not that there are a lot of options of anywhere else to be, but I really am, even if there were. I'm so excited to be with this group tonight. I think I speak for all of us in the rowing community that it's an honor to have David and Alex, Patricia, Aquil, and Anita with us this evening. Anita and I were just saying that we wish this were a fuller monitor, and I'm looking forward to the day that it is. And in the meantime, these are our Olympians who have represented the United States, and I'm thrilled to have Richard Butler hosting this panel this evening for us. Richard has been a pioneer for USRowing for a long, long time. We've known each other, and I've always admired how he has not given up hope, and he continues to not give up hope on us and our sport. And I think we're finally on to something together, and looking forward to sharing more about that. But I'm gonna stop talking and turn this over to Richard, and thank you all for joining us this evening.
Yay. Thank you, Amanda, for such a warm welcome. And I never signed up to quit. So I'm going to be here to the very end until you all kick me out of the boat. So there's that. I'm super excited. This is quite the powerful panel. This is the representation that I've always wanted to see in the sport of rowing. These are the shoulders that those of us that look like those on this panel stand on and continue to stand on. Young ladies, young men, or however you identify, these are the shoulders that we all get to stand on. And you've made us proud, and we want to make you proud, and we want to also celebrate you. So today is about a celebration of who you are and where you've been and where you're going. And hopefully the participants will walk away inspired to share what you heard in this panel, this talk today. And if you just walk away and share what you've heard with one other person, then we're going to be already better in society. And so this is not the Richard Butler Show. This is our Black Olympians webinar. Welcome, 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 Anita. Welcome, David. Welcome, Pat. Welcome, Aquil. Welcome, Alex. And I would like to start by each of you just giving me 2 to 5, and then by golly, you're an Olympian. If you want 10 minutes, take 10 minutes, and just introduce yourself and who you are, where you're from now, and when did you row in the Olympics, and what is your most memorable rowing experience? And so I would like to start where it started. Anita Defrantz, welcome.
Thank you. It's wonderful for me to be here, not only because it's been so long, I'm still kicking, but also because I love the sport. I'm so grateful that I was introduced to it. I was walking across campus the fall of my sophomore year, and I saw this weird thing in slings. I knew what slings were. I went over to inquire what it was, and the tall guy standing there said, "It's rowing, and you be perfect." Okay, there's a line for you. I'd never been perfect for anything, but I thought I'd try. I said, "What do I have to do?" He said, "Can you swim?" I said, "Yeah, since I was 4 years old, I learned." He said, "Good. Meet me in the parking lot at 5 a.m. Monday morning." I thought, I'm not doing anything else at that hour. I guess I'll be there. And that's how I got introduced. I mean, the first few rows were pretty pathetic. Now that I know what rowing is, back then it was like, we're on the water. We're not wet. This is good. But from there to where I got to, I could not have imagined, especially since my senior year, I was demoted to JV. And that same guy who said it would be perfect told me that if I worked hard, I could make the Olympic team. It's like, okay, I got demoted to JV my senior year at a small coeducational liberal arts college in New England. And you think I can make the Olympic team? I thought, nah, that makes no sense. Finally, I figured it out. Critical thinking, by the way, critical thinking is so important. Please, please, everybody, use critical thinking. I figured out that if I didn't row, 4 other women wouldn't be able. That's when we had 5 people in a boat, the coxswain and all. So I continued to row, thank goodness. And that boat got a chance to finish out its season. So by doing the right thing, critical thinking and all that, they were shocked when 2 years later I came back to Connecticut and said, oh, by the way, I did make the Olympic team and we won a bronze medal. But there I was, JV, a small New England liberal arts college. And thank you, Vesper, for taking me in and letting me learn how to go fast. The motto of Vesper is creating world and Olympic champions. And as soon as women's rowing was on the program, they opened their doors. Some of the guys weren't happy, but they got over it, and their marriages and all that stuff, and a couple of new generations of rowers that came from that initial reluctance to have women around. Anyway, our sport is miraculous. It has done so much for me. I want to give back. I know the boat doesn't care what skin tone you have. It doesn't care about much, except that you're willing to work hard and make it go fast, period. Is that 3 minutes?
That was fantastic. Thank you. And so Anita rode in the 1976 Olympic Games in Montreal. That must have been pretty exciting to be in another country, although North America.
Well, the magic thing for us is that we actually were, because this was the French-Canadian part of Canada. So only French spoken there, which was a shock to many people. Fortunately, my family had gone to the World's Fair, so we knew. But no one ever mentioned it I don't remember any briefing when they said, by the way, they speak French there. Not a single time. So anyway, it was only a problem when I was trying to get a chocolate milkshake at McDonald's after my race was finished, and it just was not computing. So I had to survive on a chocolate Dunkin' Donuts.
That's amazing.
Because my Philadelphia Tandy cakes had run out. Anyway, I will go on, stop me, because I've got lots of years to talk about. Not my fault.
We'll do an Anita Defrantz day. So we'll do it that way. Patricia, please share who you are, where you're from, and when you rode in the Olympics, and what is your most exciting experience in rowing?
Sure. Great to be here. Great to be here with these amazing peer athletes, and appreciate US Rowing hosting this. I'm Patricia Spratlen-Etem, and I was in the 1980 Olympic team. That was the boycott year, but I have to say one of my most memorable experiences in rowing was actually around advocacy. And that was spearheaded by Anita, but at any rate, so I was on the 1980 Olympic team, and had my pathway actually for that was making some development teams and a world championship team ahead of that. And so that truly was memorable, because that was my first sort of international competition. And that preparation really is important, I think, for becoming an Olympian and becoming a better competitor to make your next Olympic team. The World Championships, I think, are vital. So I was also on the 1984 Olympic team. And my Olympic dreams actually began when I was very young and I saw Wilma Rudolph running. So I think just the fact that Olympism is broadcast, and across sports can be inspirational. Even if you're a rower and you see a basketball player, you see an amazing tennis player, I think just that inspiration to excel and to have that promoted and to show the diversity in sport really did translate to, it wasn't so much, well, there's nobody like me here on this Cal team. It was, what's driving me is the inspiration from what I have seen so many athletes do, and I want to do that. So my time, I think, was made more special on my Olympic teams by also representing in a major fashion, I would say, my college. My college definitely gave me the on-ramp to rowing. And so I hope rowing remains a sport where you can always be welcome to try out, whether you're a novice, whether you start as a sophomore or what have you. It just can be so, the fact that it is open arms and really needs to be even more open arms, but it really was. And I started at the time of Title IX. I'll never forget that. So I thank all the policymakers who were instrumental in that, and that has propelled women in college. And so it was important to me at Cal to have a smaller community. Cal was a huge campus. And so rowing gave me that. We started out and we were all novices, so that was also great. And it was just a testament to what women can do. And I do have to say that our first coach was from the men's team at Cal. And so, you know, sharing in somebody else's vision was very powerful. And having that collective experience just carried over with my female teammates on the US rowing team. So with that, that was my Olympic experience. But my most memorable, you know, is just the process of getting there, to compete with other people who are working hard to get there, and to really learn that you can always take it to another level. So.
Thank you, Patricia. And I would be remiss not to mention that Anita also missed out on the 1980 Olympics because of the boycott. So
She was not amused.
we know. I read the books. So Patrice, that's fantastic. Thank you for that. In Title IX, yeah, we go yay, Title IX for sure. So thank you. Next, Mr. Aquil Abdullah. When I became the first African American executive director of a rowing program, someone handed me your book. Said you should read this. And I read the book and I said, I need more rowers like this. And I started recruiting. Want to thank you for that. And it's your turn.
Wow. Well, you know, it's kind of the following the ladies, that's tough work. You know, this is the history that was before me. Even though it was, you know, some 20 years later, that was, you know, I was living through their legacy. So I'm from Washington, D.C. And at the time I started rowing in D.C., Woodrow Wilson High School was the only program, public or private, in the metropolitan area. And it's come a long way since then. I was recruited to play both football and I was recruited to row. You know, despite the fact that I played wide receiver and tight end, I did not like getting hit. So I chose rowing. But my journey to the Olympics started in 1984 when I saw the opening ceremonies of the Olympic Games. And you know, it was their little colonel that was there. I saw that and I was like, wow, that is amazing. And I was a scrawny little kid. I went and stood in front of the mirror and I was like, dun, 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 dun. And my mother walks in and she's like, boy, what is the matter with you? And it's like, I'm going to the Olympics. And, you know, but that dream got stashed away. Like they went on to do other things and it really wasn't evident until that was a possibility until I started rowing. And I started rowing. I went to development camps, and Tony Johnson said to me, Aquil, we've got a lot of good guys coming from Dartmouth, Harvard, and Yale, and why don't you try sculling out? And you know, it's like, you know, I think the one thing that we all have in common is that we're very hard-headed. You have to be very stubborn, and you have to be very willful, and you have to be very confident in your ability to make it to the Olympic stage. And so I said, I'll show him. So I wound up sculling and rowing and, you know, some of the sweep boats as well that summer. But then it really dawned on me that I might have the potential to do this when I won US Nationals in the single. And that's when I was like, whoa, maybe I actually do have the stuff to make it. And so that journey took me long and wide. I like to tell people that there's many paths to the Olympics. It's not, we have a system now where a lot of guys think, oh, you go to college and then you go to the, you get invited to the national team. No. For Aquil, I went to college, and then I spent 3 years trying to be good enough to make it to the senior national team. I was right there on the cusp. And then in 1999, I represented the US in the Pan American Games. And then in 2000, I lost the Olympic trials by 33 hundredths of a second. And I always tell people that that they're, every time you pause to breathe, like that's how much, even shorter, I lost the trials by. And I was down. I had to look down the dock and see my parents. And, I was lucky to have the people around me that I did. Because with my head down, Jamie Coven was standing next to me. I trained with him the prior year. Mike Tatey said to me, he said, hold your head up. He said, look down that dock. He said, your parents still love you. It's just rowing. And I was like, it's just rowing. Man, I've been spending my whole life trying to, this is what I've been all about. But that was the kick in the pants that I needed, and from there, I went on to win the Henley that same year. And to me, that's my most memorable experience. Really, I can't, there's all of them are memorable. Like the journey, the training, walking into the Olympic Stadium, like all of those are most memorable to me. But definitely holding up the Pineapple Cup after winning the Diamond Sculls Challenge in Henley was one of my most memorable memories. From there, it was 2001. I was back training in Princeton, and Chris Korzanowski had returned to the United States. And this for me was actually the most memorable rowing experience I had, because Chris walks into the boathouse, and Chris will not admit this, but when I was in college, he had come down to DC and he had said to me, I said, Mr. Korzanowski, I want to make the national team someday. He's like, no, you will never make it. You are too small. And so Chris comes back to the US, and I'm one of the top scullers in the country. And he walks in, I'm like, hey, Chris. And, he's like, remembers, and he'll deny that story. But, I love Chris, but he'll deny that story. But from there, I went on to row in a quad with a bunch of guys who were just, I don't even know where we found speed, but we managed to get into the finals. And then I rowed with Henry Newsom. I was the bow pair in the double, in the quad that year. Sorry, I've got screaming kids in the back. It's around that time. And then from there, I went on to row the single, to represent the US in the single at World Championships in 2002. And man, what a lonely journey that was. Single sculling at that level where you have such a depth of talent, and any 6 or 7 people can win on any given day. It was truly eye-opening for me in my journey of what an amazing opportunity I had. So then finally, I guess to sort of wrap this up, in 2004, I'd been training in Princeton, and this is sort of what I mean by the hard-headedness. I just was not having a good year in 2004. I was in doubles that I thought should have gone faster, and I couldn't figure out why. I'd have really good days and really bad days, and it was just inconsistent. And that, to me, that was one of the worst things, to be inconsistent, to know that you have the potential, but not to be able to call up the effort and energy to do it. But finally, I got partnered with Henry Newsom in a selection regatta, and somehow each day we just found more speed until I just knew, like, this is the boat that I'm supposed to be in, and we're going to the Olympics. And so we came back, we went to trials, we won the trials, and we were on our way. And I'd have to say, throughout that whole time, like, people kept talking about first, and I correct people a lot of times and tell them that I'm Anita is the one. She is the first. You know, but all of that stuff was just noise. Like, you know, I think like both like Patricia and Anita said, like, I tell people the only race that I'm interested in one is when I'm on the line. Like, that's all that matters. The boat doesn't care. It cares about speed, going fast. And that's what I love about this sport. It's attrition and it is persistence.
Thank you.
That's all I
Kip.
got.
That's a lot, and I appreciate you. So we're going to move over to my screen to Mr. David Banks. When I first met David, I was at a gala, and I met his parents, and his parents said to me, they looked at me and said, "Take care of my boy." And that was powerful for me because we had representation in that room, and that was important to them to know that he was in good hands. So I like you too, David. Your parents are cool. So David, you're up. Take your mic off mute and share your story with us, please.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you, everybody, and thanks for setting us up. And yeah, it's tough to follow in these footsteps here right now to those amazing stories, inspirational stories. But yeah, I am originally from the Washington, D.C. area, but didn't grow up rowing at all, or not really much near the water. Yeah, my rowing, I guess my journey started when I went out to Stanford University out in California. And kind of like Anita, I kind of like wandering around campus. You know, I was a track runner. Well, originally I played basketball. I loved that, playing forever. I got cut my freshman year in high school, right? But I still, you know, I love Michael Jordan. So I had those hoop dreams, right? I was going to come back sophomore year, you know how it goes, and eventually keep going, but didn't quite go there. I actually started running track, so I got into some new things. And so I went to, at school at Stanford, I got there looking to do something, right? I had a competitive fire in me. I just needed to do something or find something. And so I was ready to walk on the track team, or even be a manager on the basketball team, and still had some hoop dreams there. My RA was a manager. He's going to hook me up, and you never know. It'd be like with Rudy, right? You know, you eventually kind of make it there at some point. But my roommate down the hall from me said, "Hey, you're tall. Why don't you try rowing? We're having a meeting. You know, this is the first week. There'll be dinner there." You know, so I was like, okay. I was a small, skinny kid, so I said, sure, I'll go and get a meal. And so that's kind of how it started. You know, I went, and coaches put on a presentation. A little different from Anita. I think we were on the California version. They said, show up tomorrow at 3 p.m. There's no talk about 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So I didn't even know that was a thing. So it was all afternoon. So I said, hey, what's the worst that could happen? So I went the next day. They did a little presentation, and I said, the thing that really kind of got me too is they said, oh, it's all about, I thought it was about your arms. They said, no, it's all about your legs. I was like, oh, this is great. You know, I'm going to start flying when I, go back to basketball and start, just be, so fast, right? It's all your legs. And so that kind of hooked me. And one thing led to the next. I told myself, okay, I'll try it for a week, or give it a month, but kind of knowing myself, wouldn't be easy to quit. I should have known then. But something kind of caught on me. It was just little by little. I learned early on in the sport, the amount of work you put in, and you could just really immediately saw those results. So I immediately started seeing little things kind of get better slowly, and I was sort of starting to get hooked. And so I had this fire in me, and just kind of rolled with it. I had some great coaches and teammates who stuck by me. I wasn't by any means the best of my freshman team. I was probably the 8th or 9th guy trying to just hold on for dear life. But coaches kind of stuck with me. They gave me, some support, and very thankful for that. And just kind of kept working and slowly got better and got improved and kind of got better and better. And eventually had some opportunities. And, I kind of, like everyone said before, I love the Olympics growing up. Just, watch track and field. I love watching track and field, Michael Johnson and those, fast relay teams and things. I just loved watching those. But I never really thought the Olympics would be something sort of my future. But it's a small, I was fortunate at school to also have some examples and some athletes that were looking and going to the Olympics or on that kind of level. So I started to see that there was something out there, but still didn't quite maybe see myself that way. I guess kind of really started when I got invited to go to Princeton at the end of my senior year, because at that point in time, that's where the training center was. And I was a little nervous, and, you're going there and you think you're going to get there and everyone's going to be, these giants, right? Olympians, they're going to be walking around like, like gods, I mean, some of them are, incredible, amazing people. But, I got there and I realized that, it's just kind of regular people, working really hard. And it seemed like something that I could do as well. So kind of help light the fire, but, or keep it going. But kind of like Aquil said, there's many ways to get there. And so mine was sort of a longer path as well. I think this was 2005, and I think my first time then, after I went back to grad school for a little bit and still had this, this dream to keep going. So I did, and got re-invited back. But, it was a little bit of a journey. I think my first day when I really kind of moved to Princeton, I had all my bags, everything there. I was carrying a boat into the boat bay and, dropped the boat out of my hands. My first day there, the boat falls on the ground, the pair cracked. I looked around and see if I could blame it on someone, but unfortunately Matt Imes was right there and saw it happen, so I couldn't brush that away. So I think I'm going to get cut, all these things, but it didn't happen. I was fortunate to stick around, and I think actually Corzo, shortly after that, I guess Corzo found me and put me in Sculling 101. So there I was, part of the dream team, but not that kind of dream, sort of. It'd be a dream if I ever made it, to 2008 or 2012. So. Anyways, kind of kept going and, just try to work hard and keep pushing. And I was fortunate to have some good teammates, some people that really helped, looked out for me, great coaches. My family was always very supportive, and was fortunate to make it to the 2008 Olympics in Beijing, and then still had that fire in me and didn't want to let it go. And just knew whatever I wanted to do those next 4 years, I wanted to be in London. So I kind of kept pushing through. Like a lot of journeys, lots of ups and downs, so many times in this sport, surprised myself so many times, when you think you may be, at the end or just too tough to the next piece or whatever, you always surprise yourself. Sometimes that next piece could be a great one, or you just don't see those things coming, right? You think you're going one way and you don't expect it, but some things happen unexpectedly as long as you're out there, with integrity and working hard and all those things. So that's sort of my quick journey. I think there's just so many memorable experiences. It's really tough to put on one, from first starting out, not knowing what I was doing, sitting on San Francisco Bay, looking, amazed that here I was doing something I never thought I would do, to, being able to share the experience with my family, when that first phone call, telling them, when I made it. And, for a lot of the journey, it feels a little bit sort of selfish in a way, right? It's just you out there and you're putting a lot invested in it. And it was great to really kind of be able to share that, with my family and ultimately, other friends and teammates and things like that. So it's my quick journey, a lot of great experiences. And, like the folks before me were saying, look really interested and focused on, how we can change this sport to get more of us on the screen than just the 5 of us here. So.
Richard, you're muted.
I think you're muted.
I know most people were happy I was muted, but here I am again. As we move finally to, Alex, I don't mean to insult you, the baby of the bunch. And although you rode in 2012 also with David, it's just, we have these multi-generations here, and you really helped complete this foundation. It's important that we've gone through each of you, and we're building and we're building and we're building, and now we're up to you, Alex, and now we're going to be super solid. So let us have it.
Well, thanks, Richard, and thanks for having me. And it's interesting to hear you kind of like put it in those terms, because I do feel like I was fortunate, because I had kind of like seen it happen, and even when I did get into rowing, I went to Stanford and David was there, so that definitely inspired me. But anyway, my story, I guess similar to Anita and Banks, I grew up in LA and honestly didn't really know what rowing was as a kid. Didn't know what it was in high school. I played, I guess, pretty much every sport other than rowing. Football, basketball, baseball, volleyball. And just really didn't even kind of think of myself as like an endurance athlete at all. In fact, on the basketball team, like when I was in high school, we used to have to do like a fitness test to sort of like make sure that we were like fit enough to like be like, I guess, safe on the basketball court or something like that. And it involved running a mile, and you had to do it for time. And the way to get full points on the fitness test for someone, you had to break 6 minutes and 10 seconds for the mile. And so for 4 years in a row, I ran a 6:09 mile, like literally like doing like the bare minimum, because I just like hated running. Like I just thought it was crazy that we had to do that. I was like, I just want to, shoot jumpers really. But anyway, so I was not like an aerobic athlete at all. But then of course, I also like wasn't particularly good at basketball, and so I ended up at Stanford, kind of like being this like kid that like grew up playing sports, but all of a sudden, I get there my freshman year and I like don't have sports in my life anymore. And so I think a lot of the time this probably still happens. I'm just like walking around campus during like the new freshman like orientation, and I get called over by one of the coaches, and basically, they say something like, "Oh, you're over 6 feet tall. You could be like the next great rower. Like you could probably go to the Olympics." And looking back on it, like I kind of feel like sort of silly for thinking that was even like a remote possibility for like believing that, because it's like you literally don't know me at all, and I'm like 6'2", so you think I can go to the Olympics? But like I was like, that's awesome. Like that could be amazing. Obviously seeing the Olympics on TV, you just know how sort of profound and impactful and how special it is. So when you even just hear that word associated with something you're doing, you're just like, oh, this is amazing. And so I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. So the funny thing was, I thought I was kind of signing up for like rowing. So like you're gonna go out in the water and like do cool stuff and get in a boat. But the first practice, we actually get into vans and drive to Yosemite and go to Half Dome, which is like a big mountain, in this, beautiful national park. And sort of the task that is given to all of us is you're going to run up this mountain and you're going to do it as fast as you can. And so I'm like, what does this have to do with rowing? Like, why are we here? It's like 5 a.m. And like, I'm like the kid that's like never wanted to run more than a mile, but this is like 9 miles, like vertical. And so I just really had no idea what I'm getting myself into. But, long story short, I somehow survived that. And then, the next few days, I think I was sore probably for a very long time after that. But, the next few days we end up getting to hop into a boat. You start to take those first strokes on the water, get on the erg. And kind of like David said, there really is nothing like seeing the effort you put in immediately kind of reflect itself in the results. And that was the thing that really took me with rowing, unlike these other, like these team sports where it's a game and there are these rules and referees and so forth. But like with rowing, like you pull harder, you see a better score, people think you're doing better, and you put in more work, you get better. And I think I just got really addicted to that feedback loop. And it just kind of becomes like a drug where you're just like, I want to get more and more and more of that. And then all of a sudden, you kind of look up and it's like, oh, you're in shape and the program's doing well and you're winning races. And so that was just like a very sort of fast and kind of immersive experience for me. And so, I'd been rowing for, I guess, my freshman and sophomore year, ultimately got invited to try out for the U23 team in Dartmouth. So I went and did that. And, they kind of told me, oh, you don't really have like a chance to make the boat. You kind of thrash the water. You have no idea what you're doing, which is true. But then, and Greg Hughes, I kind of owe him for this, told me, if you break 6 minutes on this 2K test with the VO2 max thing, like that would be really, really good. And so, that was like sort of my thing. And I kind of went for it and did it, and then ultimately made the boat. And I think that kind of translated then into the next summer rowing U23s. And then that kind of got me sort of exposed to a chance to make the senior team. And that sort of carried its way through after I graduated college. And so, come 2010, I'm thinking, okay, I kind of got this thing figured out. And then whack, I got cut. Did not make the team in 2010. And I remember that being like a very big wake up call for me. like, hey, this is not easy. You have to grind for everything always. Don't get caught slipping. And so after that, I basically like recommitted to like really getting meticulous about like training and all that stuff, and kind of like took a page out of Banks's book, where I was like, oh, I'm just gonna, train very hard 3 times a day and, exhaust myself. And so I sort of did that, and then kind of bounced back in 2011, and then ultimately in 2012. And then I retired. I was good with that. I was happy with my journey, 7 years in the sport. But I'm still staying close-ish to the sport. I met my wife. She was on the Stanford women's team. And so, rowing, I think, to a certain extent, will always be very meaningful to me for that. Now in LA, I'm on the board of a nonprofit called Row LA, where we try to help underserved women get access to the sport, which is particularly meaningful for me because, my wife, she was grew up in Seattle, just with her mom, single mom, really didn't have a lot, and like the only way that she was going to sort of like make it was to sort of get like a college scholarship, and rowing was her vehicle, and it took her to Stanford. And so, I know that this is a very special sport. It can change people's lives, and that's why, I think it's, in addition to all the great experiences I've had, why I think it's so meaningful. I guess the thing that's like most memorable, and I'll try to wrap this up pretty quick, like a lot of the races are like a blur. Like I don't even really remember any of them. I've like tried to like think hard about this. But I think that like I always just sort of look back on all the experiences like in between the races. It's like the people and like the relationships that you make. And it's so like real for me because Eva and I met through rowing, but like even now today, like all of my closest friends, are the people that, I trained with every day. And so I think I really value all the time I got to spend with people, really getting to know them. There's nothing like showing up every day when you don't want to and you're exhausted, just because you have one another's back to really kind of like form that bond. So that's probably the most memorable thing for me.
Beautiful, Alex. Thank you for that. What I find fascinating about this entire story, all of your stories, with the exception of Anita possibly being at Vespers, but not everyone, you didn't come through the best club in the city to get through the pipeline of nationals and senior and then Olympics. You worked hard. And your careers weren't always 10, 12. I've been rowing since I could, once I was a junior rower in a club program, but you rowed as walk-ons. And so my one and only question that I have for you, one or two of you can respond to this, and then we're going to just open. I had other questions, but you know what? Your stories were really inspirational, and I wanted them to keep going, and I wanted the people listening to hear your stories and how you got through the Olympic pipeline. I'm gonna ask one question, then I'm gonna open the floor for Q&A, but I have 2 questions that came in via email that I will respond to first. And for those of you who have questions for these amazing human beings, I want you to go to the chat, and the chat will be monitored by Samantha and some of the other US Rowing team. And if you wanna go off mic and ask a question, they'll put your name on a list. I don't want you all coming off mic all at the same time. That's just not fun. It's like herding cats on water, just not fun. So if you want to speak, put your name in the chat. We will recognize you and you'll have an opportunity to speak. But my one question that I have for you, and this has been a burning question for us on the DE&I committee with US Rowing, is how can you best inform coaches on how to recruit walk-ons? Really?
So I'll go first on that. I think that there's so many athletes on a college campus who are seeking some kind of change. They're volleyball players, they're track, they're soccer players who are on a campus who maybe it's not working out for them. Perhaps they've been playing since, oh my gosh, they were, 2, and they're ready for a new sport. And so I think that on the college campuses, the coaches need to, I hope it's somewhat collegial, but really identify existing athletes. That's number one, who could be great rowers, who have that athletic background. And secondarily, I think for many diverse campuses, looking at even non-athletes, but individuals who are in leadership roles, individuals who are in club sports on campus, individuals who are, I would just say in the club sport arena, it's pretty, at least on the UC campuses, I know, club sports are huge, absolutely huge. And so many diverse entities play, whether it's sororities, fraternities, student co-ops, you name it. And so the student representation is there. I think it's just being a little bit creative. And then I would also say for a pipeline for college campus, for college coaches, really being intentional and investing, looking at your recruiting dollars, and are you investing locally what you're investing going abroad? Like, I think if the college coaches look at you, if you're at USC, if you're at Berkeley, if you're at, some of these places, you are so near inner city, diverse city, are your athletes going and representing your rowing team in high schools, with high school coaches of any sport? I just think it's so critical to say, where are we investing and how are we investing, and are we engaging our athletes to be representative of, our sport in local community colleges and colleges.
Thank you for that, Pat. And I want to correct myself. I'm not used to using Zoom. I use Teams. There's a Q&A button that you can put your questions in, and the chat can remain for those places where you want to go. Powerful, Pat. To Pat's point.
I'm gonna jump in and I think real quickly say that I'm gonna steal something from Arshay Cooper. I'm on the Most Beautiful Thing Inclusion Fund with all of these Olympians, but you got to show up, right? And that's sort of what she was saying, where are you going and where are you putting your, deploying your resources? And I think it means something different at every level. In college, are you going to, as a coach, are you going to the Multicultural Student Service Center? Are you going to where people are playing intramural basketball or volleyball? Are you going to the places and actually investing in building relationships, right? Because there's a question of trust. You go, so you're showing up, you're creating relationships, and then someone at the Multicultural Student Service Center, says, hey, you know what? You're pretty good at basketball. You're a really good athlete. Maybe you should try out this rowing thing. There is a trust there. There is a familiarity there that you're building. And so I think that part of it is about showing up and building relationships in places where we haven't done it before.
Thank you both, Patricia and Aquil, for addressing that question. Here's a question that came in via email at the midnight hour. What advice would you give to someone who wants to get back into rowing, but who is anxious about how difficult and often also how exhausting it is to try and find your place on a new team, especially as someone who is likely to be the only or the one of the only people of their minority identity, race, sexuality, etc. on the team? And as I like to say in panel discussions, when you take space, make space. So who wants to go next? Anita, unmute, please.
Yeah, thanks. To me, and all these stories are about individuals believing in themselves. It's ridiculous for me to think I could be an Olympian after being demoted to JV my senior year in college. But I went on about my business, went to Penn Law School at the same time as I was training for the Olympic Games. So it was no joke. Sorry about the other noise here. It's not too loud. So it's believing in yourself and telling people that. We don't talk about the sport very much. It's kind of our secret, and we know why, because if you talk too much, I can't make this sound go away. So I'll just stop. So that, to me, that's the main thing. You have to believe in yourself, and you gotta believe you're the baddest person in the boat anyway. So just carry on. And don't, if you're afraid of pain, don't row, because it's guaranteed.
That's amazing advice. Just own it, right? Just step in the boat and own it, regardless if you're the only or one of the only in the room. So I love that. The final question I have that came in at the midnight hour, and then I'll continue. We'll ask the Q&A folks. As a white coach to high school girls, how can I best support my Black athletes so that they do not feel like this is their sport, so that they can feel like this is their sport too? What are some situations at practice, regattas, or team travel that as a white woman, I may not realize are affecting my Black athletes and I should be sensitive to? I have a lot of first-generation Americans from Asia, Africa, and Central America who I feel minimize their cultural differences to fit with the larger group. Is there something that I can do to make them feel that they can be more themselves? Bam. Alex, you came forward. You're like, I got this.
Well, I mean, I think it's actually, it's an amazing question, but an amazingly challenging issue. I think that, that you like, at some level, like you want to allow people to sort of like have the space that they need. Like you don't want to put people on the spot and like necessarily like make them uncomfortable. And so I think, you're sort of, you end up potentially kind of like putting yourself in this position where it's like, oh, well, like I kind of want to like toe this line because, I'm like sensitive to this and like I'm aware of it. So I might just end up kind of maybe like not saying anything or like being conservative. And I actually think that that's like a sort of like losing strategy because, at the end of the day, like you want to celebrate like what makes people great. Like you want people to like sort of bring their authentic selves because that's how they're going to be their best. And the thing that I feel like I've always seen when it like works really well is like when it like starts from the top. And so like I think as like a coach or like as a leader on the team, if you're like the captain or like whatever, like you have to bring your authentic self and like you have to sort of like celebrate, I think, all of the things that kind of like make everyone great and kind of go out of your way to do it, as opposed to kind of like potentially risking dancing around sort of like the subject and maybe like kind of making, as a result, making people uncomfortable, like without kind of unintentionally.
Thank you for that, Alex. Aquil, you're off mic.
Yeah, I'll be short again. Sorry, this is such powerful stuff. There's a simple thing that I think that coaches can do, and that's to talk to each one of your athletes that you feel might have some issues individually, privately, but also, as Alex said, be the leader and show what type of behavior you demand. Because as rowers, we all have each other's back. So if you see something, call it out, but also let your athletes know that they can count on you if there's anything that they need to talk about.
Thanks for that, Aquil. I like to say, create brave space so people can show up and be themselves. David, you were off mic. You wanted to speak?
Yeah, no, just a little thing. Yeah, just kind of being just, like Aquil was sort of saying, and now too, you are the head, you are the coach. And so kind of just be aware too, of the whole team. Just really be aware of some of those sort of interactions that you see, just learning how to just be really observant and just seeing the interactions between the other, the teammates themselves and how people are interacting, try to, just being, I guess just being aware and realizing a lot of little subtle things that may be going on, right? We always hear about, everybody experiences sort of microaggressions and those little things. So just being, super, aware, all your senses up and really, seeing some of the little things that may or may not slip by, right? And if you are not aware of those things and you are sort of the leader, and people are looking and it can feel like maybe that you in the leadership position aren't necessarily caring about them or something like that. So it's being just, you are that top position and really understanding that a lot of these little things may be going on that you're not aware of. So like kind of learning how to teach yourself and kind of expand your own development in ways as well.
Thank you for that. Anita?
Just one small thing that I learned from the original Anita Defrantz, my mother. We are one race, the human race. We are all the same, and yet we are each unique. And if people stop getting, the word race has caused so much harm in the world because it divides. You get, it's ridiculous. So get that out. And if we can remember, we're all one race. And listen to people, as the advice given already, I second or thirded, because you have to listen to what people are saying and believe them. I mean, I've had people ask me what it's like, and then I'll tell them, I say, oh no, that can't possibly be. It's like, okay, the weather's wonderful today, isn't it? Because you just can't go anyplace from there. You asked me to tell you a truth, I did, and then you say, no, that's impossible. But
Yeah.
So listen, as everyone has said, and also understand we are the same. Skin tone is just a passing thing. We are all human. Thank you.
Yep.
I
Lee.
guess,
Oh, and
yeah,
ahead.
my comment would be about that in terms of lived experiences. People will, Black athletes will experience things differently. I mean, we had a training camp in Boston, and we were always billeting with people. And must have been for the 81 team, I think it was. So we billeted in 79 with, great people. I remember in 79 landing in Princeton, and the billet mom came and picked me up, and we had spoken on the phone. So I know she wasn't kind of prepared for an African-American athlete in her home. And so there was just this little bit of awkward silence, but my gosh, they billeted 5 of us, like literally every summer since, my entire time. So that was a great relationship. But there was a time where in Boston, I was staying at a rowing friend's home, and her sister was like having an African-American person in their home. So, friends do navigate with you too. We can have allies who will help us navigate and help their families change. So I truly think that it is okay to see tension and to be an agent of change in ways you didn't think you were going to be. And so it was not like I was making any concessions to move out, and neither was my friend. So her sister moved out, and her mother stayed strong. So I just, there are times when it really is real. And I think, it's your time to be a torchbearer for taking somebody to another level.
Thank you. Oh, that was a powerful question that every single panelist is like, I'm jumping in on this one. I have something to say, and I'm going to have something to say as well. I'm going to recommend that the coach that wrote that, if you're truly interested, you can definitely be proactive and become more culturally competent and more racially literate by just yourself going out there and reading materials and researching, and as well as asking your athletes if you're doing harm. So we have 5 minutes left, and there's a couple of questions, and we're not going to get to them all. So what we're going to do, I'm going to ask this question because I think it's a great takeaway question. What is one change, rather big or small, that you would like to see in rowing? And we'll just go around table, and let's start where it all began. Anita.
Well, now it's unfair because I have less time to think. One change. For us to talk about rowing as it is and not make it the double secret society that we have right now. I know when we're with other rowers, we talk probably way too much, but we need to be able to tell other people about why we love the sport and how it can be accessible to everyone.
Yeah, I'm fond of saying, stop being a rower in the boathouse and be a rower in the community. All right, Pat.
Well, I, love the fact that rowing is changing. I think that this panel is great. I super support many initiatives at the local level. So, I think I would love to see African-American coaches in the sport. That would be great. I not myself, I've given up those 5 a.m.s, but at any rate, I'll support, coaching development that I think would be really super great for this sport. I think that's critical. And then connecting colleges and universities to local clubs very intentionally, and athletes. And I just give a shout out to Arshay Cooper and also other diverse people. Jolene Esparza, I see your shirt on, hats off to her and her business. Hispanic Latina woman who really changed how we rode and helped all of us be faster through clothing. So I think diversifying the supply chain in rowing and in sport is so critical. Supporting women-owned businesses in the sport. There's just a lot more that we can do, and making sure for us with kids, that they get involved. I saw somebody say, how do I get my son to row and not be an overbearing mom? And I said, just go be an overbearing mom and get that kid in the boat. But at any rate, hats off to everybody.
Thank you for that, Pat. And we're going to take it over to Aquil.
Yeah, I'm going to just double down on sort of what Anita said. We have to realize that there is something special about this sport, and there is nothing special about this sport. That being a rower is a great thing, and it provides us with so many opportunities. So the one thing I would like for us to change is sort of that, how do we let people know that this is not such an exclusive sport? How do we let people know that I rode on a team with guys from Temple, from UC, from University of San Diego, like everyone talks about where people from Ohio, from Michigan. So I think that the one thing I would like to see change in the sport is sort of, like what Anita said, how we talk about the sport and how we talk to other people about the sport.
Thank you, Aquil. We need to give up the secret handshake. All right. David.
Yes, good question. I think, for me, it's been a lot going on right in the last year, a lot in the country. There's been lots of issues that have now come to the forefront, that a lot of people of color have had to deal with their whole lives and before that. But you are seeing a sort of a new movement, a new energy, and there's a new energy in this sport and sort of in this space. And I guess the one thing I think I'd like to change is that, rowing it's a unique sport, right? Everybody, it's a team sport. You're in there, but everybody's done it in there. Everyone's going to always still put the emphasis on themselves, right? In the sense that, I have to make sure I'm pulling my weight, right, in the boat. And I think it's the same thing in this space. A lot of people are coming and wondering, how, what can we do, or how can we help, or what this, or questions. And I think we all kind of, the change, everybody can look around, what can they do, right? What can they do with what they have, the resources they have to really impact the change, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be financial resources, although there's some great things happening, like Aquil mentioned. Arshay, the Most Beautiful Thing Fund there to help, support clubs and kids across the country. But I think everybody as well can also look, you can do other things that are in your space that you can really look at. I mean, I've looked at my own life and, think, okay, I thought for sometimes, not that I thought, but, okay, if I'm out there and I'm doing my best, that'll be a great example in doing this. But, that's not enough, right? I need to, personally, I need to go out and do more. And I think the one thing I'd like to see is us capitalizing on this great energy that we have, right? There's lots of great energy across the country. Some amazing things happen. And so that's the one thing I'd really like to have, is to keep that energy. As you say, Richard, it's a 360, right? It's not just doing something, during Black History Month. We're all looking at what we can do, whether it's dollars or time or what have you. So that's the one thing I would challenge myself to change, and I'd like to see, change in the sport as well.
I love that, David. Change begins with ourselves first. So you actually said you're going to challenge yourself. That's important. So everyone watching and listening, challenge yourself for sure. Alex, this is it. Wrap it up with a pretty bow.
I mean, look, I think you know, what Banks said just really resonated with me, and you know, that's something that like I guess I personally have been challenging myself as well, you know, over the past year, because I think like, you know, obviously it starts from within, and so I think that's just something that all of us need to really embrace. I do think that overall, like I want to see more people run. Like I know how cool the sport is. I know how meaningful it's been for me. I think it can be meaningful for a lot more people. And so I just want to see more people doing it. And I think one of the things that I've always found a little bit like strange about rowing is that we like tend to celebrate like how hard it is. It's like, oh, I'm so tough and it's like hard. It's fun. It can be like super fun. And so, you know, I would like to see more kind of talking openly about like what makes it fun and like actually like enticing people to come do it instead of potentially scaring them away. And so I want to see that. And then of course, you know, you want it to be more accessible. The boats are expensive. It requires water. It takes a lot of time. Like there are like some fundamental things that actually make it very inaccessible. And so, you know, there's a lot of stuff right now that I particularly in the last like 7 or 8 months has been kicked up trying to make it more accessible. And I just want to see those things like continue to, you know, take shape and just build on the momentum that they have. And so I think, you know, kind of like everyone on the panel has been saying, it's like, it starts from within, we got to seize it. It can't just be a thing we think about in February. It's got to be 24/7, 365.
Thank you for that, Alex. And I want to close and just say, Anita, Pat, Aquil, Banks, and Alex, how inspirational you all are to me, the 62-year-old guy. And so I can't imagine some of the young people on here right now seeing representation and modeling that they don't always get to see. And so that's huge. And I would like to challenge all of the participants that you have an opportunity to leave here today and share what you heard here today and share with one other person. That's all we need is one other person to be convinced that this is the sport for them. And so I want to end with this for everybody on here. The future you determines the future us. Thank you all. Thank you, US Rowing, and have a good night.